as you just heard Senator Cotton talk about, there's a divide on that side of the aisle, too. It wasn't too long ago that proposing single-payer health care would have been considered too toxic politically for Democrats to do. Apparently not anymore. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont did that just this week. And he may have split left-leaning Democrats from the party leadership and from many Democrats seeking re-election next year in swing states or even red states. Well, joining me now is the independent senator, Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, welcome back to Meet the Press, sir.
Great to be with you, Chuck.
So let me start with this. Why was this week the right time to propose a solution that, in your mind, would replace Obamacare over time? And the reason I ask it that way is Republicans are still trying to repeal and replace Obamacare on their terms. Did you just add sort of more chum to the waters here by proposing an alternative that would be a version of repealing and replacing Obamacare?
No, I think the immediate concern is to beat back these disastrous Republican proposals that would throw millions and millions of people off of the health insurance that they have, raise premiums for older workers very substantially, cut Medicaid by hundreds of billions of dollars. That is the immediate concern. But Chuck, there comes a time when we have got to ask ourselves, why are we, the United States of America, our great nation, the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right? Second of all, why are we spending twice as much per capita on health care as any other major country, all of whom guarantee health care to all of their people, and our health care outcomes are not necessarily better? Third, why do we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? And in my view, a Medicare for All single-payer program will address those issues and guarantee health care to all people in a cost-effective way. And that's the direction that we've got to go. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I fully admit that. But we need to put the benchmark down there and go forward.
Well, I want to ask you about the cost issue, because as you know, some of your friends on the right, I put friends in quotes here, are referring back to an old conversation of yours having to do with the cost of expanding the healthcare system. Let me play it and get your reaction on the other side.
You want to guarantee that all people have access to healthcare as you do in Canada. But I think what we understand is that unless we change the funding system and the control mechanisms in this country to do that, for example, if we expanded Medicaid to everybody, right, give everybody a Medicaid card, we would be spending such an astronomical sum of money that, we would bankrupt the nation.
Obviously, Senator, the issue of this is there's the idea of health care for all is something that has majority support. And then when you remind people how much it could cost, how much taxes go up, then people get concerned. And obviously, you were concerned about the finances there. Explain what you mean and how you can change the funding system to not make this so astronomical.
Okay, very good question, Chuck. But here is my hope. You and I are going to discuss this within 5 minutes. I would hope very much that NBC and CBS and ABC allow us some serious discussion time to explain to people in our country why we are spending so much more than other countries. But very briefly, and I would hope that we can have an hour discussion at some point on this issue. Very briefly, this is what we're going to do. Number one, private insurance companies in this country spend between 12 and 18% on administration costs, and they're administering hundreds of different private insurance plans. You have a deductible of $5,000, I have one of $8,000. It is incredibly complicated and very costly to administer. The cost of administering the Medicare program, a very popular program that works well for our seniors, is 2%. We can save approximately $500 billion a year just in administration costs. Okay. Second of all, because we pay so much more per capita on for our prescription drugs, by having Medicare negotiate drug prices, we can save over $100 billion there. So that's a lot of savings. Thirdly, and here is the important point, my Republican friends say, well, Bernie wants to raise your taxes. They forget to conveniently mention that Bernie wants to do away with the private insurance premiums that you're now paying. For example, Chuck, the average employer who has a worker who makes $50,000 a year is spending $13,000 a year on health insurance for that worker. The worker himself or herself is spending $5,000, $18,000. Now, if our plan goes into effect, that $13,000 private insurance premium disappears for the employer. It goes down. The amount of money that the worker is now spending, that $5,000, goes down. We replace private insurance premiums with Medicare premiums. The average middle-class worker saves money.
Well, I guess the question I have for you, though, is how do you convince some 80% of Americans who do get health care from their employer that it is worth rejiggering the system again? That seems to be the other challenge here, because as you know, people that get employer-based private insurance are basically happy with their insurance. The people that are not happy are those in that other 20%.
Well, yes and no. And in fact, we are going to need a lot of discussion. And again, I would hope that on NBC, CBS, ABC, we can begin to have that kind of discussion in a serious way. But here is the truth. You know, Gallup does a lot of polling on this issue. And what they find out is that the most popular health insurance program in this country is Medicare. Right. People, seniors, feel really good. Veterans Administration ranks very high. In fact, private insurance company is not all that popular. Well, we have to tell the average worker the only thing that is changing in this program, this is not, quote unquote, a government takeover. The only thing that's changing is the color of your insurance card, from a Blue Cross Blue Shield card, a United Health card, to a Medicare for All card. You're still going to go to the doctor you want. It's the same structure. All
right, I'm going to move on to a couple topics, but I do promise you some time, longer time on this topic. I think that's a fair point. A fair point. Let me ask you, as you know, your former primary rival, Hillary Clinton, is on a book tour. She wrote a lot about you in this book. I just want to play one quick excerpt and get you to respond on the other side, sir.
I was arguing with my supporters at the Denver convention in 2008 about why they had to quit complaining that I didn't win and get out and support Barack Obama. And I didn't get that respect from him and his supporters.
As you know, you've probably seen at least some excerpts of the book. I don't know if you've fully read it yet, but this is a consistent theme. She believes you didn't work hard enough to bring your supporters to the fold the way she did in 08, which is what she was pointing there. And if anything, your supporters may have undermined her candidacy in the general election. Do you accept that criticism?
Wow. No, I really don't. And I look, Chuck, right now we're focusing on health care. We're focusing on the doctor issue. We're focusing on infrastructure, high cost of prescription drugs. I don't think it's useful to go backwards. I think we've got to go forwards. But let me just say this. I worked as hard as I could. After endorsing Hillary Clinton, I went all over this country. And I would remind people, you know, people say, well, not everybody who voted for Bernie ended up voting for Hillary. No kidding. That's what happens in politics. If my memory is correct, in 2008, something like 24% of the people who voted for Hillary Clinton in the primaries ended up voting for John McCain. That's the nature of politics. Most people, you know, are not rigidly Democrats or Republicans. They vote where they want. I worked as hard as I could to see that Hillary Clinton would be elected president.
Speaking of the Democratic Party, you're in some ways the most influential member of it, yet you're not technically a member of it. The filing deadline to file as a Democrat for the United States Senate in Vermont in 2018 is about 3 months earlier than it is for you to file as an independent. It's in May. Do you plan to file as a Democrat or as an independent when you run for re-election in 2018?
Well, I will do what I have done in the past. And let me just say something about this. The current model of the Democratic Party obviously is not working. Republicans control the House, the Senate. They control the White House. They control 2/3 of the governor's offices throughout this country. In my view, Chuck, what we need to do is to reach out to independents. There are a heck of a lot more independents in this country than there are Republicans or Democrats. I am an independent. I've always been a Democrat. I've worked within the Democratic caucus in the House and the Senate for over 25 years. I'll continue to do that.
So you'll become a member of the Democratic Party when you think it's finally open enough for independents?
It's not a question. Actually, in Vermont, there's not a question of a litmus test. I think that the Democratic Party has got to reach out to working people, has got to reach out to young people, has got to come up with a progressive agenda. And by the way, that agenda is gaining momentum, $15 an hour minimum wage.
Okay.
Putting $1 trillion into rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, transforming our energy system. That's the agenda we've got to fight on.
All right, Senator Sanders, I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to our more extensive conversation, though, on how to do single-payer health care, how to pay for it, because there's a lot of details that we need to get to. Thank you, sir, for coming on and sharing your views.